Good evening. So I want to first start off, I put the "When we speak, we shape the world" up there because it really truly is a mantra that I've tried to accept and emulate. It is also something that since moving here in 1996, I have watched the Community Alliance and the work that has happened not only with the newspaper, but the organizing around social justice issues that this group has done for decades. Even when I suffered my first moment of discrimination at Fresno State, they were the first people to start helping me organize around it. So I want to give a big shout out to Mike Rhodes, who I was worried about him. I still worry about him. And a huge fist in the air to a guy who fought back against medical complications. And I can't say enough how grateful I am that you are Fresno's. And how grateful I am that you're still here. And Pam as well, but I know that having a strong team around you matters. So to everyone involved with Community Alliance, thank you so much for welcoming me into this space. And Howard for always capturing the right moment. I've met a lot of Lady Gaga doing a lot of the stuff you're going to hear about tonight. No one is more important in meeting famous people than that photo, and he took it. So thank you. So I asked the people putting on the event, what would you like me to talk about? And they asked me to talk about how I started in activism. They asked me to talk about what I learned from the activism. And then they asked me to talk about a recent event, which is being the new LGBTQ liaison for the City of Fresno. And then just a few short thoughts about kind of what we can do moving forward. So really quickly, my story started in Mississippi. I did grow up in Jackson, Mississippi, as Paulina said. I grew up in a very racially diverse community, low-income family, and I went to a school that sadly had the rebel flag as our high school flag. And my first moment of activism was as student body president to organize the student body to change the flag to a flag that was not the Confederate flag. But that happened because of intersectionalities of learning about economic justice, racial justice, and the ways that if we're divided, we don't see the commonalities and the power that we have if we fight together. And so that lesson in Mississippi, although I was a closeted lesbian, I knew I was gay from the age of 5. I was very closeted, and I spoke out around issues that dealt with things that were marginalized and problematic in the communities that I found myself in, but I wasn't willing to speak out for myself. Until I moved to California, where everybody said I was going to move to the place of fruits and nuts. And that's actually why I picked California, let's be real. I got my first acceptance to Fresno State, my second acceptance to Northridge, again, Mississippi education. I just said, it's going to be the Sunset Strip in the ocean wherever I go. And I didn't really look at the map other than I knew the cost of living was lower in Fresno, so I'm going to pick Fresno. And I look at it, I am a person of faith, I look at it that was God's message that you cannot run from the work. And my boots were planted in the same soil that I tried to run from. There was racism here, there was homophobia here, there was transphobia, there was lack of economic privilege in this community, and there was lots of different isms that were happening in a place that I thought I was going to find a utopia where everybody's going to be singing Kumbaya and hugging trees and just enjoying life. And I learned that not by going to school at Fresno State. My first moment of being discriminated was in my first semester at Fresno State in an intercultural communication class. I learned it when 7 years later, I was the mother of a small child who was, I was the PTA president at his school, and I was asked to step down from the PTA because I spoke out against Prop 8. So I was a closeted lesbian and then finally decided to speak out for my family I was trying to just blend in like everybody else, and I finally started to say, if I don't speak up and speak out for myself, then who is going to do that for me? And it's that same line about being at the table that you use, that if you're not at that table, you're probably on the menu. And it was my own fault for not being more involved in the political process, in the community process of organizing. But I truly just wanted to raise my kids and blend in. And what I learned is when you take a back seat, someone else is driving the bus. And so that led to organizing a march on Fresno, which we called Meet in the Middle. Some of you may have come to that. It was over 7,000 people on the steps of City Hall. And at that time, we were fighting against Alan Autry, who was taking our City Hall and using it as a bully pulpit for Jim Franklin to speak out against our families. And so we would do counter protest to the mayor of at the time, advocating for him that he needed to hear voices within City Hall, trying to get involved with city government. He did at that time, after we lost at the ballot box, offered to listen to community members, but that didn't get us anywhere but just a voice of talking. There was no type of leadership that he was willing to give us. So then we had other moments of activism that came from this Meet in the Middle. And that is when, at Meet in the Middle, we decided to march on Washington, which we did with 250,000 people. That's where we met Lady Gaga and lots of other people that came out and spoke out against what was happening on the political landscape around marriage equality. But all of you know the story that on the night that Barack Obama won the White House, Prop 8 lost at the ballot, meaning that, or Prop 8 won at the ballot, meaning that we lost. And although I was in one room crying over Prop 8, I watched another room of Democrats excited and ecstatic over a Democratic African-American first elected, which I was happy for as well. But I was heartbroken that I was having to be split around issues. And that's where we learned that you had to start bridging intersectionality. And so from that, we started organizing around not only marriage equality, but we spoke out for the Employment Non-Discrimination Act that was used early on. If you look at the civil rights movement, there were arguments that were made about if military service does not let an interracial couple get married, then what happens is, if you can't get married as an interracial couple, then serving in the military with a brother in arms, when you come home, if they can't marry who they love, then you're going to look at your government and say, this is not fair. I want him to get the same rights, or her to get the same rights, at that time it was him, as me. And so that's what we learned, is that we had to fight for the right to serve in the military. We had to fight for employment non-discrimination. And as we started to fight for those things, it led to marriage equality actually being something that Barack Obama, in the year of 2015, finally said that he would speak for the respect for marriage and no longer stay silent, that he truly supported LGBTQ same-sex relationships to be sanctified in marriage. Now, that visual activism, I know you've seen the lunch counter moments. I know you know the Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta marches and fasting and lots of different elements of showing the inequities and showing discrimination. And the way that you make that happen is through visual activism. Even Jen, who's running for Board of Supervisors, talked about what when she went to the meeting? I saw the purple shirts. The purple shirts. And those purple shirts mean what? Activism. These people are showing a solidified message of being harmed, and they're going to show a message of we are a contingency that you need to worry about. And so that visual activism matters. That's when we shut down Las Vegas Boulevard for nearly an hour. It's the longest time it's ever been shut down. That is also the longest time that I ever spent in jail, 17 hours. This is the second arrest when we took every branch of the military to be arrested on the White House fence, fighting for the right of same-sex couple, or for not same-sex couple, for LGBT people to serve openly in the military. The reason that you see every branch of the military on the fence is because the Pentagon had made a joke when we first were arrested. There were only 2 men who served in the Army. And the joke from the Pentagon was you would expect that from men in the Army, trying to say something about their intelligence or their economic class, etc. So what we did is the very next month we said, well, we're going to show you we're in the Marines, we're in the Navy, we're in the Coast Guard, and that's the reason that you see all the different branches. And we took up civilians who were standing up, so the people that were in plain clothes, including the person of faith, were there to serve as allies, to take risk with those service members who, after taking that action, actually could no longer serve in the military, because once you take action in uniform, you no longer can serve. So not only did they lose their right to serve, but their pensions and many other things that they get from that moment. Taking risk is not fun, but it does lead to success. And what I will say, as a person who walked precincts for Barack Obama, nothing made me prouder than to see him be able to celebrate the gains that we made as an LGBT community. I believed him at the Democratic Convention when he was stumping as a senator, and he said, I believe in a white, a red, a black, a blue, a gay, a straight, all the vision of the rainbow. That is the America I'm fighting for. And that's the America that I want to live in as well. But you and I know that we didn't stop with Barack Obama. I mean, I wish we would have. I wish we would have tried what Trump's trying to do right now. Just said, oh, he won, sorry, he gets to stay in office. But we weren't thinking about being a fascist society, trying to overthrow democracy. We were thinking about serving in a process of fair and open politics. And sadly, what we see right now is that the rise of hate crimes is completely happening. If you look at this study from the Southern Poverty Law Center, it shows you that the number of anti-LGBTQ hate crimes increased by 43% from 2018 to 2019. That number has gone up, but this study was released in March of 2020. On top of that, if you look at Every Town for Gun Safety, they also have an organization that fights against gun violence. The number of trans people who were murdered in the U.S. nearly doubled between 2017 and 2021. And 73% of those people killed were killed by what? A gun. Yes. And those guns happened because we don't have sensible gun legislation in this country. And we have people that are lobbyists that are trying to control our government with big money, and it takes action that's going to make those people in power stop what they're doing to our children and to our communities. But I'm going to ask you a trick question that I know all of you are going to get. What do you notice about that rise? What's it connected to? You guys are brilliant. Yes, Trump. According to the FBI, hate crimes surged nearly 20% during the administration of Trump. The report also showed that hate-motivated murders largely committed by white supremacists spiked to their highest number in 28 years. And that number is on the rise. So when you talk about stop the hate, be the love, it is not just to get a grant or to do these things and let's hug each other and sing Kumbaya. We have a problem on our hands. And the only way that we can win is to not stay silent, but to fight back, to organize, to run for office, to donate and give your time to those people who are willing to step out and make a difference in their community, in your community. And so what I'm asking you is to think about what are ways? And there's a lot of different ways. I'm not going to go through all of these, but I do want to point out that some of us have to look inward. It's not just looking at the hater. It's how have I stereotyped them? Why are they doing what they're doing? And how can I reach them and change them to look at the things that I look at from my perspective? And there are going to be, I'm going to tell you very few, if any, things that I would ever agree with Donald Trump on, but I would sit right here with him and I would debate him word for word word and point for point, just like I did at the Southern Baptist College that I went to in Mississippi. Because the only way that they win is if they control the narrative. And the only way they don't control the narrative is if we speak back and we offer our perspective, which is a lot better than theirs, I can guarantee you. So that means that we have to stay engaged. There is no moment of giving up. We are about, I know everybody always says, this is the most important race of your life. Haven't you heard that like every year where, oh, this is the best? You're going to hear it. The DNC is going to start calling, time to write checks. They aren't lying this year. I am not kidding you. This next election cycle in this next year is the absolute most important races of our lifetime. And I know I'm young, and you're probably saying, hey, what's she know? I know it's been bad. But right now, we have the possibility of really having a tyrant take over our White House and not give it back. And we're going to be in a lot different fight. And it's free press that is the only voice that we have. The interesting thing about my parents is my parents came from Mississippi. And I bring, obviously, and I said they moved here after me, and my brother moved here after me, and I bring the Fresno Bee to my mom and dad, and I bring the Community Alliance to my mom and dad. Now, my dad is very progressive. My mother, not so much, but she loves me, and I'm doing my best to change her. But my mother, one day, she looked at me and she said, you bring these two newspapers, and this other paper, is it fake? And she's talking about Community Alliance. And I said, no, that's the real news. The Fresno Bee is only telling you a little bit of the story. Community Alliance is telling you the real story. I said, when you hear about fake news, that's what they're talking about, the Fresno Bee, not the Community Alliance. She was like, oh, maybe I need to read that one. Yes. So start buying the Community Alliance or do your donations and pass that paper to people and say, this is the full part of the story. And so all I'm asking you to do is think about, why are you doing what you're doing? I'm doing it because I believe and I love Fresno. And because of that love, I was recently asked by Mayor Jerry Dyer to serve as the LGBT liaison. I can tell you about how we organized around that, but that is because of the work that we did as a community to push back about having a voice within the walls of City Hall. I do this because of my family. That little boy that was standing behind me on the podium is now 20 years old. My beautiful wife is sitting here and supports me at all of these different things. And our daughter is about to graduate from Buchanan High School and is a vocal opponent to what's happening in CUSDs as well as what's happening at the Board of Supervisors with the library. She organizes on her high school campus. Now, I do it for them. But I say this, in case you did not notice, the rainbow flag is not white. And neither is our hearts, the colors that we wave, and the passion of where we come from. You don't have to be queer to care about social justice and intersectionality. I know that you're here because your heart calls you to do that. And I cannot ask you enough to hit this number and go beyond it. Tonight, I didn't take the ticket. I gave $200 to them because I believe in what they're doing. And I'm asking you, I'm imploring all of you to give what you can to not lose that voice that we so much need in this valley. The final one is this. We win by speaking out and fighting back. We influence other people by doing that. That's my daughter. When she was only 2 years old at Meet in the Middle. This is her at the Women's March when we marched in Sacramento. And right now, you're going to do it with me. I'm going to say, I am. And you're going to say, somebody. Okay, you ready? I am.
Somebody.
I am.
Somebody.
And you're going to do your work to stop the hate, be the love, and vote in these next elections. Thank you. Hold on, sorry. I want to say just one more last thing. This hangs at EOC. They have a little queer library. And I got this quote from Drew Harbaugh, who's the executive director or the director of PFLAG. And I just want to read it because it's so important and it kind of speaks to what I said. This is a quote by George M. Johnson, who's the author of the banned book, All Boys Aren't Blue. And this applies to every single one of us in this room. My queer ancestors were forced to live in the shadows. They fought so that we didn't have to do the same. So we must fight. We must protest. We must provide each other aid and safety and support. And we must continue telling our stories because they can't bend them all.